Genius inventions that should exist everywhere. In Poland, this bike path was made using thousands of tiny luminophores, which is a material that produces low levels of light for 10 hours, then recharges itself from the sun. The bike path doesn't require electricity and provides safety for people biking at night. Next, 20 different cities in France have already implemented this. It allows you to charge your phone by using pedal power. The goal of the company is to promote an active lifestyle while making sure your phone doesn't die, and people who use the bike also get free Wi-Fi. Next, the Cal Maritime Police Department in California has placed a safe zone outside which is watched by a camera 24/7. They made this zone so you don't have to worry about getting hurt or robbed when purchasing things from people in your city. Mother Gothel from Tangled is the evil queen from Snow White. At the end of Snow White, the evil queen falls off a cliff, but we never actually see her die. But what does happen is that she finds the magical flower from the movie Tangled, which makes her young and beautiful again. Because remember, both the evil queen and Mother Gothel were obsessed with being young and beautiful. Also, it's very convenient that at the end of Snow White, the evil queen falls off a cliff. And in the movie Tangled, Mother Gothel finds the magical flower at the edge of a cliff. And to add on to that point further, both movies take place in Germany. Both women have the same exact dagger and look very similar in their older state. Also, even though both women never had children of their own, both of their names actually translate to mother. Also, the famous red apple from the movie Snow White actually shows up in Tangled here after Mother Gothel stabs Flynn. I'm going to ruin your childhood, part 83. In the show Good Luck Charlie, Teddy was never actually vlogging. And in the show iCarly, Freddy was never holding the camera. Next, I recently realized something about Mike Wazowski from Monsters Inc. His chin is also his crotch, which makes all the times he rubs it, which is a lot of times, very weird. Next, I always wondered how Mr. Krabs could have a whale daughter, but Pearl calls Mr. Krabs daddy and always asks for money, so that means Mr. Krabs is actually her sugar daddy. Next, Plankton built his computer wife Karen, so that means he programmed her personality. He made a wife who would make fun of him and mock him, so that means Plankton has a humiliation kink. Movie scenes that were changed depending on what country you're in. In the movie Inside Out, in this scene where Riley's parents are trying to feed her broccoli, this was changed in Japan to bell peppers, since most kids there like broccoli but don't like bell peppers. Next, while viewers in the USA and Canada saw a hockey match playing out in Riley's dad's mind, since hockey isn't a big deal outside of those countries, and since the most popular sport in the world is soccer or football, they changed the team from playing hockey to instead show them playing soccer. Next, in this scene where Bing Bong reads a sign and points to the letters, not only did they translate the sign for other languages, but they even went as far as to reanimate Bing Bong, so that he points to the letters from right to left instead of left to right to accommodate the languages that read that way. Descendants of famous historical figures. Jean-Marie Laurette was born in 1918 and grew up knowing nothing about his father as his mom never spoke of him. But in 1951, when his mom, Charlotte Lobjoie, was on her deathbed, she revealed his father was a German soldier named Adolf Hitler. When Jean heard this, he began investigating and tried to figure out if Hitler was actually his father. Official German army documents were discovered which showed that officers brought envelopes of cash to Charlotte during the German occupation of France. This sent cash could be evidence that Hitler remained in contact with Charlotte after he left her. Also, paintings were discovered in Charlotte's attic that were signed Adolf Hitler. There was also a painting found with Hitler that he made that closely resembled Charlotte, though it's uncertain if it was really her. Also, Jean and Hitler were the same blood type and both looked very similar. This man became the deadliest sniper the world has ever seen, all without ever using a scope, and his confirmed number of kills will shock you. Teemu Heiha was a Finnish sniper who served in the Winter War of 1939 against the Soviet Union. He preferred to use a rifle with an iron sight rather than a scope so the enemy couldn't see the glare off the sight's glass. He would wear all white and pack himself in heavy snow to blend in with his environment. He would also put snow in his mouth to hide his breath. And in less than 100 days of combat, he had 542 confirmed sniper kills, but it's estimated he had closer to 800 kills, if you count the kills he got with his submachine gun, which he used as a secondary. All this earned him the nickname the White Death amongst both his fellow soldiers and enemy. You can now also be a legendary sniper in the war strategy mobile game Warpath. There are tons of challenging missions, and for a mobile game, it's honestly got some really cool sniping animations. There's way more than just sniping too, as you can use tanks, planes, and other weapons to defeat other real players. Warpath is available on the App Store and the Google Play Store. Sad things you never noticed in Marvel movies, part 3. In Avengers Infinity War, during the snap, Groot says, "I am Groot" to Rocket as he dusted. But the director of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, James Gunn, confirmed that those final words actually translate to dad. In Iron Man 3, Tony says this:
I can't sleep, and I have to protect the one thing that I can't live without. That's you.
Tony couldn't sleep until Pepper was safe, so that's why she says this to him when he's dying in Avengers Endgame.
You can rest now.
In the show Loki, Loki's file in the TVA doesn't end when Thanos snapped his neck, but rather when Thor hugged him, meaning the last thing Loki felt was the hug his brother gave him. With the 13,000 nukes that currently exist, every city on the planet could be destroyed. Even if you were lucky enough to survive the immediate blasts, fires, and radiation, the explosions would carry so much ash into the atmosphere it'd cause a global winter, where temperatures could stay below freezing year-round. Estimates show that some of humanity might survive the immediate impacts, but it would definitely be the end of human civilization as we know it. That's why I want to shed light on hashtag Cranes for Our Future, which is a movement that advocates for a peaceful future where nuclear weapons don't exist, where problems between nations are solved based on mutual respect and not by fighting and destroying each other. This August, for the first time in 7 years, governments are meeting at the United Nations to discuss nuclear disarmament. And we can show them the world is demanding action. Just fold a paper crane and share it on your social media accounts with hashtag Cranes for Our Future to show your support. Secret German wonder weapons that could have changed World War II. The Sphera Gustav was a 1,350-ton railway gun that was the largest cannon/gun ever built and used in history. It could fire 7-ton shells up to a range of 29 miles, was 4 stories tall, and needed a crew of 2,000 to make it work. The sonic cannon used methane gas and 2 parabolic dishes to emit strong vibrations that at further distances would make you lose consciousness, but at closer distances it would literally shake you apart from the inside and destroy your cells, tissue, organs, and be fatal. Hitler wanted to create his own Death Star when it was revealed the Nazis were creating an orbital weapon named the Sun Gun. It would have been a 1-mile long concave mirror that would be able to reflect sunlight onto a concentrated point on Earth. Improvised scenes in Stranger Things Season 4. Since Season 3, which came out 3 years ago, we've all been waiting for Hopper and Joyce to be reunited. And apparently so were Winona Ryder and David Harbour, as Stranger Things writers confirmed this kiss was totally unscripted. Winona and David added it in the day of filming, though they weren't instructed to do so. Eddie and Dustin's brotherly relationship was one of the best parts of Season 4, and it turns out the writers of Stranger Things confirmed that during Eddie's death scene when he said "I love you man," that was completely improvised by Joseph Quinn, who plays Eddie, and Gaten Matarazzo's character Dustin's genuine response of "I love you too" solidified the intense emotional ending.
I love you, man.
Behind the scenes of Marvel actors' last day on set. On the last day of filming for Avengers Endgame, when they were going to film Tony Stark's funeral, Tom Holland, who everyone knows is a one-man spoiler factory, was told he was going to be attending Tony and Pepper's wedding, and not Tony's funeral, because apparently the crew were so worried about Tom spoiling the ending. But here's where it gets really funny. According to Zendaya and Jacob Babylon, who play MJ and Ned, Tom revealed Tony Stark's fate to them before they got to see the film like everyone else, and spoiled it for them anyways. The best new features coming to iPhones in iOS 16. Now for up to 15 minutes after you first send an iMessage, you can edit it and it'll revise to whoever you sent it to. Or you can just unsend the message altogether, and you have the ability to mark a message that you've already read as unread. You can now copy text from your videos and not just from your photos anymore. And with a feature called Visual Lookup, you can long press and lift any object out of a photo and drop them into whatever you want, and it does a surprisingly good job for a 1-second background delete. With a feature called Desk View, it uses your phone's ultra-wide camera when it's mounted on top of your laptop or monitor to give you this awesome top-down view of whatever's on your desk in front of you, and it works surprisingly well. You can customize lock screens with different fonts and colors. You can add widgets above and below the clock. And with a lock screen feature called Live Activities, you can keep tabs on things like live sports scores or the status of an Uber ride. Incredible things people found hidden in their homes, Part 2. 3 days before Carl Sabatino's aunt passed away, she told him to check under her sewing machine. When he did, he found a painting. At first, he didn't think much of it until he noticed the signature on the upper left corner. The signature read, Picasso. Carl says his uncle bought the painting for $30 from a street vendor in London during World War II. Carl took it to an expert who discovered a partial right thumbprint embedded in the paint, which could only have been left by Picasso himself. And today, the work of art is valued at $25 million to $35 million. Improvised scenes Tom Holland came up with on the spot, Part 2. In Spider-Man Far From Home, when the first elemental shows up, we see Peter repeatedly bang his head against a giant bell in a tower. This super funny scene all comes from Tom and his brother Harry. The brothers came up with the sequence, shot it on their phone, and then showed it to director John Watts, who liked it enough to include it in the film. Marvel fan theories that actually came true, Part 5. In Avengers Age of Ultron, the vision that Scarlet Witch induced using her powers on Thor showed Heimdall telling the God of Thunder that he'd lead Asgard into hell. This led fans to theorize that Asgard really would fall in the MCU and that it would literally be Thor's doing. That turned out to be true, as Asgard's destruction came in Thor Ragnarok, when Thor himself triggered the apocalyptic event in order to defeat Hela and save the remaining Asgardian civilians from her wrath. Speaking of Thor, you can now play as him in this mythological turn-based RPG game named Dislight, but not only as him, but as gods from 4 real-world ancient mythologies, such as Greek, Egyptian, Chinese, and Norse myth. You can use the power of the gods to defeat epic bosses and monsters that are hell-bent on causing destruction just like Hela was. Click here on my profile to check it out. Maybe the reason dragons show up so often in almost every ancient culture is because they actually did exist. Let me explain. Depictions of humans fighting dragons appear around the same time period in places that are so far apart, like China, Africa, Mexico, and many more. If they did exist, maybe the reason we haven't found any fossils of them is because large birds had a hard time being fossilized because their bones were so hollow. It could be the same for dragons. And maybe they didn't literally breathe flames, but instead they were acid spitters. Having an acidic stomach would produce a lot of hydrogen. Hydrogen is flammable, and with a mechanism to produce a spark like an eel, this could turn them into an effective fire breather. Whether dragons are real or not doesn't change the fact that in King of Avalon, you can raise and use dragons to rule your own kingdom. They now have a collab with Orlando Bloom that lets you use his character Orlando the Night Shard for free. And using him along with dragons in the new tower defense mode can lead to an easy win over other players and let you conquer other kingdoms. Click here on my profile if you want to try it. Eddie Munson is coming back in Season 5 of Stranger Things. In the last episode of Season 4, we see Eddie get bit and killed by demobats, but that might not be the last time we see him. Here's why. In Dungeons & Dragons, which heavily inspires the show, Vecna has a trusted soldier/helper named Cass, who becomes a vampire by sacrificing himself to Vecna, and after years of imprisonment, he betrays and kills him. Eddie technically sacrificed himself to Vecna since everything in the Upside Down, including the demobats, are Vecna. And to become a vampire, you have to be bit and killed by a bat like Eddie was. And since Eddie's body was left in the Upside Down, Vecna could revive him just like Eleven revived Max. Some more evidence of this theory is this shot of Eddie and Cass look very similar. The song Eddie plays to distract the demobats is Master of Puppets, which alludes to Eddie going under Vecna's control kind of like a puppet. Eddie also has bat tattoos, a puppeteer tattoo, and a spider tattoo. Last minute decisions that changed the course of history. Back in 1912, David Blair was second officer of the Titanic and was in charge of the key to the crow's nest locker. Blair was due to sail with the ship on its fateful maiden voyage, but was replaced last minute. This led him to crucially forget to hand over the key when he disembarked. Without the key, lookouts were unable to get into the crow's nest locker, which contained binoculars. So lookouts were forced to use nothing but the naked eye to watch out for icebergs. One lookout that survived the sinking said if they would have had binoculars, they could have easily been able to avoid the iceberg that sank the ship. The biggest lottery winners and where they are now, Part 2. In 2006, Abraham Shakespeare won a $31 million jackpot, but sadly Abraham was an uneducated man who struggled just to read and write, so he didn't know how to manage his money. So he hired Doris Moore as a financial advisor, and together they created Abraham Shakespeare LLC. Doris had full access to the company's funds and withdrew $1 million from the bank account. She bought luxury cars and houses for both her boyfriend and herself, bought Rolexes, diamond rings, and much more. A few weeks later, Abraham went missing and loved ones were unable to find any trace of him. Authorities were soon able to find Abraham at the home Doris bought for her boyfriend. Sadly, he was buried under a concrete slab in the backyard. Doris was arrested and convicted of first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Times people cheated in Mr. Beast videos, Part 2. During Mr. Beast Influencer Trivia Tournament, he had tons of big creators compete to win $300,000. It was rumored the D'Amelio family had a screen set up somewhere off camera where they could just look up the answers. Every time they were asked questions, all 4 of them are seen looking off camera as if they are being told or shown the answers. And during this solo part, when only Dixie D'Amelio was supposed to be playing, she wins over and over. You can even see that her eyes never stay on her own board. And the thing is, it would have been so easy to cheat, as her whole family is just standing right behind the camera. All they would have to do is look up the answers and show her. And when she gets the last question right and wins the $300K, her family instantly shows up and Charlie is literally holding her phone. Creepiest things found in movie backgrounds. In the movie It, when Ben is reading about Derry's past in the library, the elder librarian can be seen in the background turning towards him and staring at him with a deeply unsettling grin. She remains out of focus the whole time, and the movie never highlights her creepy behavior. In the movie Hereditary, when Peter wakes up in the darkened and eerily silent house, you can spot his possessed mom hovering in the corner of the ceiling and staring at him. When he turns towards the corner she is at, she is then seen crawling away in the other direction without making a sound. Before I tell you the creepiest one, since we're speaking about things in the background, I found an app where you can erase anything from the background of your photos, and I mean literally anything. Click here on my profile, but don't use it for bad. In the movie Insidious, Renee spots a little ghost boy through the window dancing to Tiptoe Through the Tulips. But the ghost can actually be seen before Renee spots him dancing, right in this scene when she tosses clothes in the laundry hamper. You can see the boy standing just to her left and facing the wall.